The distance between where most people are and where they could be, it's like watching someone sit on a gold mine, holding a shovel and choosing to sell lemonade instead. Fascinating, isn't it? I was at this coffee shop the other day. One of those fancy ones where people spend $6 on a cup of coffee without blinking. And I watched this young man, bright-eyed, well-dressed, probably making decent money. He ordered his fancy drink, paid without hesitation, and walked away. $6, gone in 15 minutes. Later that same day, I saw him again and mentioned a book that could transform his business thinking. His response? $20 for a book? That seems a bit steep. Now, isn't that interesting? We'll spend $6 on something that lasts 15 minutes, but hesitate to invest $20 in something that could change the next 15 years of our life. That's the difference between thinking like an average person and thinking like a champion. Most people confuse wishes with standards. They wish they had more money, wish they were in better shape, wish their relationships were stronger. But wishes are like clouds. They float by without leaving anything behind. Standards? Standards are different. Standards are the foundation you build your life upon. Something I've learned watching people over the years. Your life right now, every single detail of it, is a perfect reflection of your standards. Not your goals, not your dreams, not your vision board. Your standards, what you're willing to accept, is exactly what you'll get. I'm always amazed when people tell me they want to be successful, but they show up late. They want to be wealthy, but they don't read. They want to be healthy, but they don't exercise. See, the gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't a gap in knowledge. It's a gap in standards. You know what the most expensive real estate in the world is? It's not in New York or Tokyo or London. The most expensive real estate in the world is the gap between our ears. That's where champions are made. That's where standards are set. That's where the battle between average and extraordinary is won or lost every single day. And here's the thing about standards. They're not something you do occasionally when you feel inspired. They're who you are. They're what you do when nobody's watching. When a champion says they'll be somewhere at 8-0, they don't show up at 8-5. When they say they'll finish something, it gets finished. Not because someone's checking, but because that's their standard. The beautiful thing about raising your standards is that life has no choice but to meet them. It's one of those universal laws that never fails. Raise your standards and your life rises with them. Lower them and, well, you know what happens? And that brings us to the most important decision you'll ever make. The decision about who you're going to be. Not who you want to be someday, not who you might be if everything lines up perfectly, but who you're going to be right now, starting with the next decision you make. Because every decision you make, especially the decision about who you're going to be, carries a powerful ripple effect into your future. You know what's remarkable? Most people think success is about making the right decision once. They're looking for that one magical moment, that one big break. But that's not how life works. I had a friend who used to say he was waiting for his ship to come in. I finally had to tell him, your ship isn't coming in. You need to swim out to it. And that's what decisions are. They're your way of swimming out to meet your future. Decisions. They're made in moments, but their consequences unfold over a lifetime. Take health, for instance. Nobody ever ruined their health by eating one bad meal. And nobody ever transformed their health by eating one good meal. It's the small decisions, made day after day, that shape our lives. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They'll set these grand goals for themselves. I'm going to completely change my life by next week. But they miss the simple truth that success is built one decision at a time, one day at a time. Neglect is like a silent tax on your future. When you neglect your health, you don't feel the consequences today. When you neglect your relationships, they don't fall apart immediately. When you neglect your personal development, you can still get by for a while. But eventually, and this is the key, eventually the bill comes due. I was talking to a gentleman recently who told me he wished he'd started saving money when he was younger. I asked him, "How long have you been thinking that?" He said, "About 20 years. Now imagine if he'd started 20 years ago, even with just a small amount. That's the price of neglect. It's not just what you lose, it's what you could have won. Your life today, everything about it is sending you feedback. Your bank account is giving you feedback. Your relationships are giving you feedback. Your body is giving you feedback. The question is, are you listening? Are you willing to look at your results with honest eyes? Feedback, it's neutral. It's not positive or negative. It's just information. If you're not where you want to be financially, that's feedback. If your relationships aren't what you want them to be, that's feedback. The question isn't, why is this happening to me? The question is, what am I going to do about it? And that brings us to something crucial about making your life count. Most people are trying to copy someone else's life instead of creating their own. They're so busy looking at what everyone else is doing that they forget to write their own story. But here's the truth. You can't live someone else's life. You've got to live your own. Fascinating. The same sun that melts butter hardens clay. Same sun, different materials, different results. Life's opportunities work the same way. Two people can face the same situation. One turns it into success. The other turns it into an excuse. The difference isn't in the situation. The difference is in the decision about who they're going to be in that situation. Your life will never be better than the decisions you make about who you're going to be. Not who you're going to be someday. Not who you want to be, but who you decide to be right now. Because that decision, that fundamental core decision about your standards and who you are, that decision changes everything. And speaking of changes, there's something powerful that happens when you start making better decisions. You start developing new habits. And these habits, these daily disciplines, they're like compound interest for your life. And these daily disciplines, they're like invisible forces that shape your destiny. You know what amazes me? Most people are looking for the big break, the quantum leap, the overnight success. But success doesn't work that way. Success is like a crop. You've got to plant it, tend it, and harvest it in season. Let me tell you about this farmer I knew. Every morning he'd get up at 30. Rain or shine, cold or hot, tired or energetic, it didn't matter. The crops didn't care how he felt. They needed tending. And over time, I noticed something fascinating. His success wasn't in the harvesting. It was in the getting up. The getting up was the first victory of the day. That's what champions understand. They win their first victory before the sun comes up. While others are hitting the snooze button, they're hitting their goals. While others are saying, "I'll start tomorrow," they're already finishing today's tasks. You see, it's not about motivation. Motivation is like a hot shower. The effects wear off. It's about discipline. We all the same 24 hours. The difference between average and extraordinary isn't time, it's what you do with it. I always say, don't count the time, make the time count. Rich people, poor people, people, successful people, struggling people, they all have 24 hours. But champions guard their time like it's the most precious resource they have, because it is. Small actions create compound interest for your life. Just like money in the bank earning interest, every small positive action you take earns interest in your future. Read 10 pages a day. That's 3,650 pages a year. Save $5 a day. That's $1,825 a year plus interest. Walk 15 minutes a day. That's 91 hours of exercise a year. You can't start with tomorrow. You can't start with next week. You can't start with when you feel like it. You've got to start with today. Start with the next hour. Start with the next minute. Because success isn't made in the future. It's made in the moment. I've watched people do the most remarkable things with simple, consistent actions. One gentleman I know built $1 million business by making just 2 more phone calls every day than he felt like making. 2 calls, that's it. But he did it every day without fail for years. That's the power of small actions compounded over time. Speaking of habits, here's something fascinating about them. They're easier to live with than they are to change. Good habits are hard to form but easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to form but hard to live with. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. You want to know what makes a habit unshakable? It's not willpower. It's not motivation. It's identity. When something becomes part of who you are, it's no longer a choice you make. It's just what you do. Champions don't have to force themselves to train. Training is who they are. Successful people don't have to force themselves to work hard. Excellence is who they are. But building these habits, creating these disciplines, it requires something more than just knowing what to do. It requires education. Not just formal education, but the kind of education that transforms your thinking and shapes your understanding. School is where you learn how to learn, but self-education is where you learn how to live. The most valuable education happens after the formal education ends. In school, they give you the test first, then the lesson. But in life, they give you the lesson first, then the test. And here's the key. Life keeps giving you the same test until you pass it. I've watched people fail the same test over and over because they never stop to learn the lesson. The books you don't read won't help you. I'm always amazed when people tell me they don't have time to read. They've got time to watch television, time to scroll through their phone, time to gossip, but no time to read. What they're really saying is, I don't have time to change my life. When you read a book, you're having a conversation with someone who has spent years, maybe decades, figuring something out, and you can get it in just a few hours. That's not just learning, that's stealing wisdom. That's standing on the shoulders of giants. Let me tell you about mentors. A mentor is someone who tells you what they've learned, not to make your journey easier, but to make your journey worth it. I had a mentor once who told me something I'll never forget. He said, success leaves clues. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself. That changed everything for me. You can learn from 2 kinds of experience, your own and other people's. Learning from your own experience is good, but it's slow and expensive. Learning from other people's experience, that's genius. That's how you compress decades into days. Knowledge isn't power. Knowledge is only potential power. I know lots of people who know what to do, but don't do what they know. The difference between knowledge and wisdom is action. Wisdom is knowledge applied. Wisdom available to everyone, but not everyone wants it. Most people want entertainment. They want distraction. They want everything to be easy. But wisdom demands attention. It demands reflection. It demands change. I remember talking to this young entrepreneur. He told me he wanted to succeed in business. I asked him what he was reading about business. He said, "Oh, I don't read business books. I'm waiting to learn from experience." I had to tell him, that's like saying you want to learn to swim, but you're waiting until you're in the middle of the ocean. Being busy is about activity. Being productive is about results. And the bridge between activity and results, that's where you'll find proper education. Not just knowing what to do, but understanding why it works. And that understanding, that wisdom, it doesn't just come from books or seminars or courses. It comes from the people you surround yourself with. Your environment shapes your thinking, and your thinking shapes your life. Which brings us to something crucial about success. Success is not just about what you do, it's about who you become. And who you become is directly influenced by who you spend time with. You can't hang around small thinking and expect to have big dreams. If you took the average income of your 5 closest friends, chances are your income would be very close to that average. Not because they give you money, but because they give you their mindset. Their standards become your standards. Their expectations become your expectations. I remember meeting this young man who couldn't figure out why he wasn't succeeding. Bright guy, good skills, strong work ethic. But when I looked at his environment, who he was spending time with, it all made sense. He was trying to build a fortune while hanging around with people who were comfortable being broke. That's like trying to stay dry in a rainstorm. Your environments, it's either lifting you up or pulling you down. There's no neutral ground. Every conversation you have, every activity you participate in, every place you spend time, it's all programming your mind for either success or mediocrity. You want to know what successful people do differently? They're incredibly selective about their environment. They understand that you can't soar with eagles if you're scratching with turkeys. Not that there's anything wrong with turkeys, but if you want to fly, you need to spend time with things that have wings. Let me tell you about negative influences. They're like a slow poison. You don't feel the effect immediately, but over time, they destroy your dreams. I've watched people with incredible potential get dragged down by negative environments. The sad part, most of them never even realized what was happening. Environment, you can change it. You might not be able to control everything, but you can control who you spend your time with, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to. These choices shape your thinking, and your thinking shapes your life. I had a mentor who told me something profound about networks. He said, your network determines your net worth, not just financially, in every area of life. Want better health? Spend time with healthy people. Want better relationships? Spend time with people who have great relationships. Want more success? Spend time with successful people. Successful people usually willing to help others succeed. But you've got to be the kind of person they want to help. You've got to bring value to the relationship. You've got to be serious about your own growth. This brings us to something crucial about success. It's not just about managing your actions, it's about managing your emotions. Because in the end, your emotions drive your actions, and your actions create your results. Emotions, they're the most powerful force in our lives, yet most people let them run on autopilot. They let their emotions drive their lives instead of letting their lives drive their emotions. Disappointment, not what happens to you that determines your future. It's how you respond to what happens. I've watched people take the same disappointment, let's say losing a job, and turn it into a completely different outcome. One person falls apart, another person builds an empire. Same event, different response. You want to know the secret about failure. Failure isn't fatal unless you make it final. Every successful person I've ever met has failed their way to success. They just didn't stop at failure. They used it as fuel. They took their disappointments and turned them into appointments with success. Most people wait to feel enthusiastic before they act. But here's the key. Enthusiasm isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. It's a discipline. You know what I mean by discipline? Doing what needs to be done whether you feel like it or not. I remember talking to this salesperson who was having a tough time. He said, I just don't feel motivated anymore. I had to tell him the question isn't how you feel. The question is what you're going to do despite how you feel. Champions don't wait to feel good to perform well. They perform well, and then they feel good. Perspective, not what you look at that matters. It's what you see. Two people can look at the same situation. One sees disaster, the other sees opportunity. One sees an ending, the other sees a beginning. The situation hasn't changed. The perspective has an emotional intelligence. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about understanding them and using them effectively. It's about knowing when to push and when to pause, when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to wait. Successful people feel the same fears everyone else feels. They face the same doubts, the same uncertainties. The difference is they don't let these emotions make their decisions. They acknowledge the emotion, but they let their goals drive their action. I've noticed something interesting about emotions. They follow focus. Whatever you focus on expands. Focus on what's wrong, and you'll find more wrong. Focus on what's possible, and you'll find more possibilities. This isn't positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. And speaking of strategy, there's something crucial about success that most people miss. It's not just about managing your emotions, it's about managing your economics. Because in the end, the marketplace doesn't reward good intentions, it rewards value. And here's something profound about economics that most people don't understand. The marketplace pays for value, not for need. It doesn't matter how badly you need the money. What matters is how much value you bring to the marketplace. Investing in yourself. It's the one investment you can control completely, and it always pays off. When you invest in the stock market, it might go up or down. When you invest in real estate, the market might change. But when you invest in yourself, that's the surest investments you can make. Let me tell you about value versus price. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. I see people all the time who are price conscious but not value conscious. They'll spend hours looking for the cheapest price on something they don't need, then hesitate to invest in something that could change their life. The marketplace is incredibly fair in the long run. In the short term, it might seem unfair. You might work hard and not see results immediately, but over time, the marketplace always rewards value. Always rewards excellence. Always rewards contribution. I remember talking to this young person who was complaining about their salary. They said, "I'm not being paid what I'm worth." I had to ask them, "Are you worth what you want to be paid?" You see, the marketplace doesn't pay you for the time you put in, it pays you for the value you create. Most people try to change their financial situation by changing their income. But that's only half the equation. The other half, it's what you do with what you make. I've seen people make a fortune and lose it all, and I've seen people start with almost nothing and build an empire. The difference? Financial discipline, creating multiple streams of value. It's not just about having multiple streams of income, it's about having multiple ways to serve, multiple ways to contribute, multiple ways to make a difference. When you focus on creating value, the income follows naturally. You want to know something interesting about wealth? It's not about what you make, it's about what you keep, what you protect, what you invest. I know plenty of people who make a lot, but keep little. And I know others who make less but build more wealth because they understand this principle. And speaking of principles, there's something crucial about achievement that ties all of this together. You see, achievement isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about doing what you know. It's about turning knowledge into action. Most people don't miss their goals. They miss the boat completely because they never truly set them. They have wishes, hopes, and dreams, but they don't have goals. A real goal is something you've written down with a deadline attached to it. Big dreams don't intimidate successful people. They inspire them. But here's the key. You can't eat an elephant in one bite. You've got to cut it down into small, digestible pieces. I watch people all the time try to achieve their yearly goals in January, burn out by February, and quit by March. Progress is not about perfection. It's about progression. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. But when you measure progress, when you track it, something magical happens. What gets measured gets improved. What gets measured gets done. Accountability. It's the difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when circumstances permit. But when you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. That's why every champion has some form of accountability in their life. I remember talking to this woman who said she wanted to write a book. I asked her, "How many pages have you written this week?" She said, "Well, I haven't started yet, but I'm thinking about it." I had to tell her thinking about writing isn't writing. Only writing is writing. You see, goals without deadlines are just dreams. Milestones, not just markers of progress, they're fuel for future achievement. When you celebrate your milestones, you're not just acknowledging how far you've come, you're building momentum for where you're going. The interesting thing about achievement is that it's never a straight line. It's full of ups and downs, twists and turns. But if you keep your eyes on your goals, if you maintain your standards, if you stay committed to your growth, that's when the magic happens. Which brings us to the most important part of all of this, because everything we've talked about today, the standards, the disciplines, the education, the environment, the emotions, the economics, the goals, it all comes down to one crucial moment. The moment you decide to make your life count. And that moment is right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the conditions are perfect. Because let me tell you something powerful about time. It's the great equalizer. We all have the same 24 hours. But what we do with those hours determines everything. Legacy. You're creating it right now, whether you realize it or not. Every decision you make, every action you take, every standard you set, it's all part of your legacy. The question isn't whether you'll leave a legacy. The question is what kind of legacy you'll leave. Every great achievement in human history started with a decision. Someone somewhere decided that average wasn't enough. They decided that good enough wasn't good enough. They decided to raise their standards to demand more from themselves than others demanded of them. You'll never know how many lives you touch. You'll never know how far your influence reaches. That person you encourage today might go on to encourage 1,000 others. That standard you set might inspire generations you'll never meet. I remember talking to a gentleman who was 87 years old. I asked him, "What's the greatest lesson you've learned in life?" His answer, "I wish I hadn't waited so long to start." Don't let that be your story. Don't let that be your regret. Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process of achievement. It's about the person you must be to achieve your dreams. And that person is already inside you, waiting to be unleashed. The choice is yours now. You can walk out of here and let everything we've discussed be just another seminar, just another talk, just another good idea that never gets implemented. Or you can decide right here, right now, that today is the day everything changes. Remember what we talked about? Your standards, your disciplines, your education, your environment, your emotions, your economics, your goals. They're all working together, either lifting you up or holding you back. The difference isn't in knowing what to do. It's in doing what you know. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Take this moment and make it perfect. Don't wait for things to be easier. Become stronger. Don't wait for opportunities. Create them. Start today. Start now. Because in the end, it's not about what you're going to do someday. It's about who you're deciding to be right now. Thank you, and God bless.